What's up? Back again, movie buff. We're going to talk about Dark Phoenix. This is the last chapter in Fox's X-Men universe. X-Men has been under the Fox brand for close to 17 years, maybe a little bit longer. There's a lot of good titles and there's a lot of bad titles. You've got everything from Logan, which is probably one of the best movies of that year. Some of the best movies in general as far as the comics book superhero type genre. It transcended the genre and went on to become an award winner. And then you've got movies like X-Men 2, which was also the Dark Phoenix saga. Just done back when Jean Grey was an adult, with the old actor that played Jean Grey. So you've got your normal cast as far as your First Class and the ones that have been followed after First Class. So you've got James McAvoy, you've got Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Sophie Turner, Sansa, for all you Game of Thrones lovers. You've got Ty Sheridan, and, Evan Peters, basically who plays Quicksilver. All the people that you know from this franchise are back in this movie. This movie is not as bad as you think. I heard terrible things about this movie. Constant reshoots, trouble on the set, drama, rewrites, everything. It's not as bad as everybody says. It's not good. It's definitely not one of the best installments of the Fox franchise, X-Men. It is not Wolverine Origins bad, and it is not X-Men 2 bad, but it is definitely not no First Class. It is definitely not Logan. It is definitely not X-Men Days of Future Past. Those are some of the best installments, period. But it does not suck. I was so worried about this movie because so many people were tearing it apart, and it's got a terrible score. It says 6 out of 10, but I think the Rotten Tomatoes score is way, way lower than that. But it's not bad. It's their version of the First Class Dark Phoenix storyline. So in this version, they go into space to save these astronauts, which the X-Wing is more than capable of doing. In the comics, it does it all the time. They're kind of delving into that universe. I have no doubt that had Disney not bought out Fox, that they were going to go more into space and more into cosmic adventures with more different cosmic X-Men. But they do that, and this is before Fox was sold to Disney. And, they already had told the story. So this has already been done a long time ago. And basically there's like this entity, there's this energy that basically destroys everything it's ever come in contact with. And that's what they're trying to save the astronauts with in space. And Jean Grey, Sansa, she absorbs it and doesn't die. They bring her back in. They think like there's this huge explosion. You're like, no way, she's alive. She's alive. She absorbed all the energy. And she's like on this mental high, like feeling so good. And then when anything like bad happens, or she gets pissed off, or her emotions run high, it comes out. And it's almost like the way they did it, her skin, you can kind of tell here, if you guys can see, her skin like splits. And it's like where the cracks are right here, that's what her skin looks like. And it's pretty crazy because the effects are awesome. They are awesome. All the effects are awesome. They have some crazy stuff with Nightcrawler, how he... They've always done that really well, but this is just exceptionally well. But anyway, her skin like splits open, and it's almost like this energy is like, she can't contain it, and she just explodes. And then anything around her, is subject to like big time damage or death. She basically finds out that Charles Xavier Professor X has not, he's been lying to her entire life, but there was a reason. He was trying to protect her psyche. He was trying to block out bad memories and bad trauma that she wasn't going to be better for. But as she's, the longer she has this entity in her, the more violent she gets, the more corrosive she becomes. It's almost like poison in her system, and she becomes toxic. And she sees that as just like, you lied to me, my dad's alive, and spoiler alert, but it's not that big of a deal because that there's something that sets her off, and that's what it is. But there's a showdown just like there was in X2, just like there was with the Dark Phoenix storyline. Instead of Wolverine, ultimately being the one to kill her, which is exactly what happens in the comics, they went a totally different way with this. And these shape-shifting aliens, don't know where this character, I'm sure it has some sort of ties with the Marvel Universe, with the X-Men universe, but I don't know. Not needed. They're after this entity too, and they know that this girl can hold it, which no one, like I said, has ever come in contact with this and lived. So they're looking at her as almost like a weapon, and they want to take over our Earth and repopulate, because again, they can shapeshift and become human. It's been done a million times, but they're doing it again. The character was just not needed. And it was Jessica Chastain, who, if you've seen Molly's Game or any of the movies she's in, she's a phenomenal actress. Completely wasted in this movie. Completely wasted in this movie. And she does great. She does great in the movie. It's just that the character is dumb. There's no point in it. They could have done the Dark Phoenix storyline, done it all the way to it, and left this whole bit out. It was just nonsensical. It didn't make sense. I think it was in the rewrite series that they did that, so that was just one of the moves on the cutting room floor that they were like, we're going to do this. Bad move. But nevertheless, that's what they did. She's kind of preying on her mind, they want to destroy you. They don't understand you. You have all this power, and they don't appreciate you, and they try to, and then she just basically drilling in her mind. And she's so susceptible to evil and evil thoughts that it's just going toward that way. And, there's a showdown. There is some X-Men that do lose their lives. Not going to spoil it for you, even though probably most of you know. And she realizes that she cannot be around anyone. Anyone that she cares about, she has potential to hurt them, possibly kill them. She goes to try to find Magneto. Magneto's in basically Genosha, which if you know from the comics is mutant, I wouldn't say paradise, mutant sanctuary, safe haven, that's protected by Magneto. And these mutants are they kind of go back to, growing crops and living very off the grid, to protect themselves. Well, she goes to Genosha and she confronts Magneto. And, she's got blood on her shirt, and he's like, whose blood is that? What have you done? And obviously the government is involved, and they come, and they're just basically they want her head. They want her, And before this happened, the X-Men are celebrities, and Charles Xavier's meeting with the president, got a direct line, and he's always saying, we're just one bad day away from losing everything and them seeing us as monsters again. And then this happens. So, just like he said, Magneto's always right. And there's a speech, and you even see it in the preview. He's like, Charles, there's always a speech and nobody cares. He's just done. He's sick of hearing, we can be friends with the, he's like, man, listen, we've been trying to do this for years and it's not worked, and it continues to go. And even if you remember Days of X-Men Future Past, the old versions of Magneto and Charles Xavier, you can see how it ends basically there. Their friendship is always, one side of the yin and the yang. It's always like that. And that's just who the characters are. But you know, Magneto at this point, he just wants to kill her. He's just like, listen, the humans aren't gonna let us live. She's killing us. You know, she's done. She basically crosses the line in his mind, and he's just after her. He's just after killer. So he goes and he basically takes a bunch of his superpowered mutants and everyone that's on his side, and they go try to hunt Jean down. Jean is 10 times more powerful than any of these mutants. She's off the Richter scale. She can barely keep the power inside her. So it's like almost like a ticking time bomb. And basically they get slaughtered by Jean. And they're getting basically transported. Obviously the government comes in and they've got the collars, you know, just like you've seen in Deadpool and all that kill the mutant Jean and keep them from, you know, using their powers. So Jean is stable and they're on a train, which there's a train scene in X-Men 2 again, but this is completely different the way they do that. It's just funny how there's so many parallels to the same movie, the way they did it the same way. But there's a train scene and, you know, Jean finally comes to realize, you know, Charles never meant to lie to her. He was trying to save her from a harmful truth that was just going to ultimately, you know, hurt her heart. He had the best intentions. He shouldn't have done that. And he realizes, he apologizes. She comes out of her kind of like rage and they all end up fighting these shapeshifters that basically can take 50 cows to the head and just shake it off. I'm fine. They're unkillable almost. I mean, obviously they do die, but they're very hard to kill. And there's this huge train battle with all the different X-Men against these shapeshifter aliens. And it's awesome. That's like the coolest part of the movie is the action. We did see this movie in the 4DX. It was one that was awesome in the 4DX because there was lightning from Storm and there's the lighting and then there's rain and it's like squirting water and there's wind and we're bouncing all around. So it was awesome. It was phenomenal. If you haven't done the 4DX, I highly suggest you do it because the movies that they put in the 4DX are meant for the 4DX. It's obviously 3D, but there's sounds and smells and bubbles and it's crazy. You've got like, anytime a bullet goes, it's like little air whisked by your ears. It's awesome. It's definitely an immersive experience. I wouldn't say rush out to see this, but if you're an X-Men fan, definitely give it a chance because it's going to be better than you thought. It's going to be better than you heard. So if you're an X-Men fan, I strongly suggest that you see it because it is the last one of the Fox franchise. Obviously, Kevin Feige has this extreme and awesome plan for the X-Men, but it's going to be 5 or 6 years and before we even see anything. So we're not going to give them X-Men for a little while. So this is going to be our last taste of the X-Men. This is over a 20-year franchise, and this is the last installment, which it is kind of sad that this is the lowest grossing installment ever. But nevertheless, I enjoyed my time. I enjoyed seeing the characters that I have gotten to know, and it was not a terrible send-off. So until next time, see you at the movies.